So the singularity it's coming, and I think we need to talk about it because we've been, I think we've been avoiding the subject. But as it gets closer, I think it's becoming pretty obvious that there's some really important details that, if this is going to go right, that need to be worked out. And it seems like Kurzweil hasn't totally gotten the whole plan together.
So when you think about the limits of computers, modern, computers processing, bits like, adding zeros and ones, and by virtue of doing it many times, an interesting pattern emerges where you can actually compute, all sorts of arbitrary functions. And for some reason, no such function has been found to necessarily replicate what humanity is.
But we're gonna get there, right? We're heading straight towards it. Like, it seems like it's chaos, but every milestone that we have, we beat humans at adding, was like 200 years ago. And then we beat people at chess, that was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Right now, Go, the Turing test is coming up. Like, it's clear that we're accelerating. It seems like it's chaotic, but it's ordered. We're heading right towards the singularity. It's gonna there's gonna come a point where the computational power of our computational computers is going to accelerate right up to where we are right now. But it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going. And
Where would it go?
we don't even know. But if we don't go there too, then we're just
Like
going to
left
be we're just
behind,
going to be just a couple of schmucks.
stranded.
So the thing is, right?
I
We
mean,
have to jump on that.
I don't want to be I don't want to be a schmuck.
Yeah, so we'll just be a couple of schlubs sitting around, I don't know, watching Game of Thrones. And so I think we need to start planning for how, there's a train and it's coming at us, and we're sitting still and it's accelerating
Mm-hmm.
because we're on the heel of the technological renaissance. We need to jump on the train. We need to figure out how we're gonna hitch a ride.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to interrupt you there. I disagree. So, like, if I was on the train and the train was moving at a uniform speed, how would I know that I was on the train or not?
But
Really?
it's not at a uniform speed. The train's fucking accelerating, man. It's going so. It's
But like, from which perspective?
doubly differentiable.
But from which perspective are you observing it? Do you think humanity are inside the train, or are we?
We're on the platform right now, and we're gonna get totally munched if we don't find a way to get on the train.
But the issue is that really, and what machine learning research tries to do is find platforms where you can onboard the train that is the singularity. And it also seems that we're stuck. I mean, we do have some approaches, but it's just that technology, it's moving so fast, and basically, if you can, imagine a two-dimensional plane where one axis is called X and the other is called Y, and this represents a uniform space, then you can imagine the curve of progress almost going up vertically. And at that point, like math, like
your whole
like what is it's like equations, right?
But
like
I
y
think you're
equals
speaking the
x
wrong
b.
language. You're talking about the plane, but you're talking about that's linear. You're talking about hyperplanes. That's still linear, but you know, things have changed now. Things are getting deeper. They're getting deeper, and they're getting nonlinear.
Mhm.
And the brain is nonlinear. I saw a brain, and it's not linear.
Not at all.
There's lots of
grooves,
manifolds, folds, even folds, just folds, unqualified folds.
I hear that if you actually unfolded a brain, that the surface area would be larger than that of a
and back,
or a football field,
and the football field. It's like sending a football field to the moon and back, and that's why we have to start thinking about So there's some guys who they're talking about memory networks, long-term memory, short-term memory networks, short-term memory networks.
It's both. It's
end-to-end memory networks, dynamic memory networks. I've been reading the papers. I've been getting to know what's happening, what's going on in our field, and the question we have to figure out is how are we going to get our memories? Like, whose memories are in those networks? It's not my memories, right? So how are we going to get our memories into the network?
So part of the problem is that a lot of these different techniques were designed in a silo. So you can imagine these different neural networks, computing, but they're not necessarily collaborating. There's no opportunities with synergy with the neighboring neural networks. But really, if you combined all of them, then at any point in time, you would have the deepest neural network in existence. And that could be one way of, maximizing our delight, like making us onboard the train.
How deep is that network?
So the thing is, it's hard to tell, right? Because at any point in time, humanity is at its most advanced technological state in history. This, which of course may not have been true during the Dark Ages, perhaps the only exception in history.
It's also
everything else.
It's also stochastic,
linearly
right?
Up. Yes.
Even the layers are popping in, they're popping out. They're
It's
dropping
just
in, they're dropping out.
Think of it like if you've ever seen a geographical map and you've seen population density graphs where the different populations have lines in between them. You'd be crazy if you didn't.
Those aren't real.
Like those are neural networks, right?
But they're not real. They want you to see. It's like when you interpret the neural network. They want to say to take the neural network, turn into a decision tree, take humanity and put the lines between them. Mm-hmm. But it's artificial.
Split them into
it's artificial. They're trying to divide. They're trying to stick a hyperplane between the different people.
Who do you think is responsible for that? I mean, who would you call the deviser of such an algorithm to split us all apart?
I think it's got, it's got something to do with, convex optimization. Cones, hyperplanes. It's very
cylinders.
I think it's a very geometrical field.
Yes. And part of the the nice thing that convex optimization teaches us is that shapes have a lot to teach us. It's like shapes inside shapes that look like swimming pools are called convex. Shapes that look like umbrellas are concave, and that's the thing. Like maybe the reason machine learning research has lagged and is because we as researchers have not taken enough effort to look at the world around us.
Yeah, how many umbrellas occur in nature? I've never come across a naturally occurring umbrella.
But there are infinitely many unnatural ones.
Exactly. And that's, I think what we're starting to get at. And memory is like that, right? It's not convex. The brain is because it's got non-convex folds, and that's the kind of folds that we need to start. The manifolds, the manifolds we're used to talking about they're a little bit too neat, a little bit too rounded corners, but the brain.
So honestly, I've still seen research being espoused by IBM Research and by Intel, where they're working on so-called cognitive platforms.
The brain analytics cognitive platform
Brain,
for bootstrapping
customer
the mind
insight.
into the next
In
singularity.
Singularity. And part of the problem is that when you look at the chips, they're still straight. Chips are rectangles
They're not
in 2D
convex.
planes. But not at all.
How can you implement a non-convex, bidirectional tensor network on a rectangular chip?
You can't. That's the answer. You can only simulate it on software, and that's known to have many inefficiencies. So think about it. Why is it that your brain, with its 50 watts of energy, can play chess, but it takes a whole data center to play chess? It's because chips are still rectangles, and we're simulating manifolds using 2D dimensional planes instead of giving them the 3D shape they deserve for maximal connections.
And I think that brings us back to connections, right? Because that's what, we got to connect to our train. We got to get on the train. We got to make our connection. We got to connect our brains to
the other brains,
to the other brains, the train brain.
The train.
And I don't see how we're going to do that if they don't. I mean, Kurzweil has been talking about this, and he's got a very clear idea that the emulation is going to start by 2020. We're going to win the Turing test. Like basically, the brain will be in the machine by 2030. And at that point, if we're not in the machine, the train's leaving the station.
Mm-hmm.
And we're only on USB standard 3.0, which is what, like maybe like a couple megabytes a second or something ridiculous.
It's what
they need at least
Stone Age data transfer.
So I actually got to meet Dr. Kurzweil over at a Singularity University meetup, and we were talking.
It's a great conference.
And he said, I'll tell you, he said if we don't get to USB 7.0 by 2030, it's over.
I believe him. I believe him. How else are you going to be able to download the information that lies in other people's brains and other people's neural networks?
And this is where everyone's got it wrong. Everyone's saying like Google, DeepMind, Facebook, like they're doing the research. Apple doesn't do research. Mm-hmm. But the real bottleneck to achieving the singularity is going to be the connection between the gadget of our mind and the gadget of the future. And that's only going to be possible with USB 7.0.